This is the 10-Minute Teacher Podcast with your host, Vicki Davis.
I get to sit back and watch my students learn how science happens in the real world. They're actually doing the science on their own, not just sitting back and letting someone talk.
Ms. Cannava, everything you taught me is actually what they do in the real lab. This is so cool.
Today's show is sponsored by EF Explore America and the STEM Tours to show your students how STEM impacts the world up close and in action. Go to efexploreamerica.com/STEM and stay tuned at the end of the show to learn more. Welcome to the 10-Minute Teacher Podcast. I'm Vicki Davis, the Cool Cat teacher, and today we're talking about something that changes students forever, teaching STEM when you travel with your students. Here's what I've learned after more than 2 decades in the classroom. STEM stops being abstract the moment a student does real science in a real place. A biology class in Panama plants mangroves. A biomed class in the UK runs a live DNA fingerprinting lab. A middle schooler walks the MIT campus. Today, you'll meet 4 teachers who did exactly that. Let's go.
Recently, I got back from our Panama trip with about 40 of our 11th graders. Our students work with local NGOs in Panama to help conserve their wetlands. I get to sit back and watch my students learn in real time how science happens in the real world. They're actually doing the science on their own, not just sitting back and letting someone talk to them. Out there in the boots, picking up the mangroves, getting on a boat, getting sunburned, going to plant these mangroves to help conserve that natural environment for the country. It's great to see the students not just pretend to like the thing, but actually do the thing, which is one reason I love traveling with kids, is to see them actually get their hands into whatever it is, whether it's mangroves or paint restoration or whatever it is the activity is focused on that day. That's why I like traveling, is to see the kids actually experience things as opposed to just read about them.
That's Miranda Grabowski in Panama. But what happens when a high school CTE biomed teacher takes her class across the ocean and her students suddenly realize the experiment they're doing is the exact same one working scientists do for a living? Angela Cannava, Denver, Colorado.
I remember one student that necessarily wasn't the most excited to be in class sometimes. I just remember him coming up to me after doing the whole forensics workshop and being like, Ms. Cannava, everything you taught me is actually what they do in the real lab. This is so cool. We did everything from health science related things, these anatomical museums and seeing anatomical artifacts, brains that were preserved, different artifacts that have been collected from years ago, a lot of the old paintings that were done of anatomy, some of the first anatomical paintings that were done. We got to go see all of those. That hooked really nicely also into the anatomy class that I teach, because I also teach an anatomy class. Lots of classroom connections with what we were actually doing and seeing. But then you also have all the really fun stuff beyond the learning part of the EF tours. We went on the London Eye, and it was like sunset and beautiful. And I have this picture of these students just looking out across the skyway. There's all smiles, and I've never seen such happy kids in my life. It was a really good mix of getting to see really good sights plus the learning. The key for any teacher wanting to take students on a trip is just, number one, knowing that you can definitely do it if you build strong relationships with students. They will want to travel with you.
DNA in the UK. Next stop, Boston, where a principal took 7th graders to MIT, Harvard, and the first robotics regionals, because you can't want the future if you've never seen it. Karen Spencer, Parkview Baptist, Baton Rouge.
We went to MIT and Harvard, got a glimpse at Harvard, an Ivy League, more liberal arts school, and then MIT, a more STEM school, to show them options. But it starts now, building that resume and getting your scores up, your transcripts ready so that you have options when you graduate. We did a tour of Fenway Park, went to math robotics, and the kids got to experiment there. And we, of course, turned it into a competition, and they were all in. Did you know that Boston has a museum of ice cream? We found that one on this trip, and it was so fun. We did the Fine Arts Museum, the Museum of Science. We did Lexington and Concord, the Boston Tea Party, the USS Constitution. We did the Freedom Trail. We walked up Beacon Hill. You name it, I think we did it. And I have to tell you, Boston this time of year was stunningly beautiful with all the trees in bloom and the tulips and the daffodils.
Yes, and we're recording this in April 2026 if you're saying, hey, I want to go when it looks like that. So you've been using EF Tours for a while. Why do you keep coming back to them?
Well, they have proven time and time again that they're willing to listen. They're willing to help me. I will tell you, on this last trip, the Museum of Ice Cream was an absolute spur-of-the-moment thing. One of the parents mentioned it in passing at lunch. And I said, wait, what? I looked at my tour guide and I said, we have to make this happen. And he was like, let me see if we can squeeze it in. He and I start looking at our schedule. How can we squeeze it in? I call EF. I said, how can we make this work? And they were like, we're on it. They jumped on it with us and it was amazing. 3 hours later, we were there. And that's one of the reasons I like EF so much is they want to work with me. They want to make it a great experience. And I trust them. They've been in business a long time. They send security guards to help at night, that sort of thing. It just gives me a peace of mind.
So we've been talking with Karen Spencer, principal at Parkview Baptist School from Baton Rouge, Louisiana. Ivy League in 7th grade plants the seed. But what happens when a social studies teacher takes 8th graders to hands-on science museums in Washington, D.C.? Edith Cortez, Laredo, Texas.
Everyone thinks Washington monuments and memorials, but the museums that we went to were hands-on and my kids loved it. And the museums, they are so competitive. They had so many scenarios to like gravitate from and moving around in every single one. And then they had to beat each other like through the activities to like get the end game. We went to several different museums that we were able to visit during our Washington STEM trip, and that was very interesting for us. The 4 boys that traveled with me were my students that year, and they were so excited to travel. We're going to do this and we're going to do that. And I kept saying like, oh, it's a STEM trip. It's a STEM trip. We're going to do this. And they all loved the idea of it, but they didn't understand or internalize what it really meant. Once they got there, they were like, Miss Cortez, yo, this is really cool. I didn't think we were going to get to do all these things. I'm like, what did you think it meant? It's like, I don't know. Like, no idea we were going to actually build on things or like try to navigate through, all of these activities or scenarios. There was one that showed them about terminology and then they gave them scenarios and they had to build on a story. And my boys were like, so extravagantly engaged with it that they just ran with it. They had so many details, like they added so much to it. They had the crowd going. I have a massive group thread with all the parents and I'm sending them pictures of everything. The parents are like, oh my, we should have signed on to this trip. But it's not easy. Hardships happen and life happens. Sometimes they don't have that opportunity. And I totally understand because my parents would have never, because probably they weren't able to. Something I always tell my students, if and when you have the opportunity in life, take advantage of it because there's a whole world outside of Laredo, Texas, and we need to take advantage of seeing it.
4 teachers, 4 different subjects, one shared truth. Once a kid has done it, they start asking, could I do this for a living? That's the magic, and that's why EF Tours, our sponsor, exists to help teachers like you and me take STEM off the page and into the world. This is Vicki Davis. If you're a STEM teacher like me, you want your students to see how STEM impacts the real world, not just read about it. On an EF Explore America STEM tour, they might code robots with mass robotics at MIT, explore marine ecosystems in Florida's coral reefs, or even sit down with a former spy in Washington, D.C. to discover how STEM thinking shows up where you least expect it. Every itinerary is designed by experts to amplify what you teach through hands-on experiences that can't be replicated in the classroom. Visit efexploreamerica.com/STEM and see what an EF Explore American STEM tour can do for your students. Some of the greatest things I've ever done with my students have been tours. They make it all easy for you. So again, check out efexploreamerica.com/STEM. Thanks for tuning in to the 10-Minute Teacher Podcast. Watch the video version of this podcast and catch my new radio and TV show, Cool Cat Teacher Talk, on YouTube and a radio or TV station near you. Join my Cool Cat Teacher Classroom Matters newsletter at coolcatteacher.com/newsletter. Leave a review if you found this helpful. See you later, educator.